Well, hello, and welcome to another of our episodes of Growing in Knowing God. And I'm really excited today to be with Naomi. Hi, Naomi. Welcome to this interview.
Hello. Thank you for asking me.
Yeah, well, thank you for agreeing. Yeah, a real blessing when you responded to my email and said you'd be up for this. And I'm really excited for our chance to chat today. And just to remind everyone who's tuning in and listening, if this is your first time joining in, well, we've done a couple of these before. We're still finding our feet, but the idea is that we have a chat with Naomi. We have a chat with different people who are part of the Grace Church family. We just talk about how we can all grow in knowing God better, in our loving Jesus more. There's a verse in Ephesians that's just really helpful and kind of sums up the heart of these interviews, really. This is Ephesians 1:17 that says, I keep asking that the God of our Lord Jesus Christ, the glorious Father, may give you the spirit of wisdom and revelation so that you may know him better. So that's our heart, that each one of us, Naomi and me and everyone listening, we would know Jesus better. And so we've got a few questions to chat through, Naomi, and it'll be really good for the Grace Church guys just to get to know you a bit better and hear a bit of your story. So you ready? Should we dive in?
Yeah, let's go.
Cool. Well, why don't you start off by telling us just a bit about yourself? We'll do a few quick fire questions. I might ask you about your favorite sandwich filling in a minute. Yeah, tell your Grace Church family a little bit about who you are.
I'm Naomi, and I discovered Grace Church during the first lockdown way back in 2020. It seems like a very long time ago now. Just Googled. I'd recently moved back. I grew up just outside Milton Keynes and was looking for a church to go to. I come from a very, very small village, so my experience was of very rural village churches with not many people, and just felt that I needed something more. And I feel very, very blessed to have been led to Grace Church. I feel like that is where God was leading me to. I'm part of Claire and Nathan's life group, which is amazing, and I don't know where I'd be without all of them. My day job, I'm a sign language interpreter, which I might speak about a little bit later because I feel like that was something that God really led me to. And yeah, that's kind of me. I love to bake. And I've generally got a literary or film reference for every occasion, so I'm really sorry about that in advance.
Nice. Well, we'll watch out for those over the next little while. Yeah, your life group is amazing, and I'm so glad that God through Google led you to us. I know you've been a really big part of that life group. It's been fun getting to know you over the last couple of years, and yeah, isn't it crazy how time has flown since that first lockdown? But yeah, really cool. Okay, go on, Naomi, tell us your favorite sandwich filling. If you like to bake, I don't know if you like sandwiches as well, but yeah.
Oh, go on. Out of all the questions, Tim, this one the most difficult.
So difficult. Okay, just picture yourself in a sandwich shop, and we're there, maybe with your life group as well. Maybe Nathan's buying, and he says, Naomi, what do you want?
Oh gosh, I really struggle with sandwiches because I don't particularly like them. But if I do have to have a sandwich, or like the sandwich I can't say no to is a good bacon sandwich, but it has to be white bread. Can't have any. I like granary bread and stuff, but you can't have any of that with bacon sandwiches. It has to be white bread, bit of tomato ketchup, and that would be what I have.
Very good. Yeah, I mean, that's hard to beat. Just a good bacon sandwich. Okay, well done. Often sandwich shops do a salad or something, don't they? So maybe you might kind of mix it up a little bit.
I might mix it up a bit.
Cool. Well done. What about this one? Best book you've read recently? Has there been something that's really captured your heart or captured your imagination recently?
Yeah, there's a few. I've sort of felt a bit, because I read a lot, I felt like this would be the equivalent of asking you to pick your favourite child, because it's really hard to choose one that's like, oh, what's this? So I discovered a series of books called the Whitstable Pearl Mysteries, which are just lovely, cosy things all about a lady who runs a seafood shop, but is a private investigator on the side, because those two careers go well together. I've always loved To Kill a Mockingbird. There's a line in it about you can only really know someone when you stand in their shoes and walk around with them, and that's really stuck with me. So love that. And then just because, you know, we are having a discussion about God. I like Francine Rivers, and I recently read her book, which is The Lineage of Grace, and it's all about women in the Bible. And I know that it's kind of fictionalized, and I know that she's embellished bits, but actually the way she told these women's stories was really inspiring, because they are generally ones who just get a name mention, or maybe a couple of verses, maybe a chapter if they're lucky, but to hear a bit more about where she thought their story was coming from and how they connected into Jesus's narrative, loved that one. Found that one really, really inspiring.
What's the one she did based on Hosea?
Redeeming Love.
Redeeming Love. That I've read that. Sam read it and told me I needed to read it, and it was heartbreakingly beautiful. I haven't read Lineage of Grace, but Sam has, and really would recommend it too. So I like the way you didn't go for a Christian book in your first answer. I don't think anyway. I hadn't heard of that series of novels, but well done you, and just saying that you these are some things that you like doing. Good stuff. What Naomi, that we really prize the culture, the value of family. We want to be a family as a church. It's a buzzword sometimes in culture, in society, and even in church. But I love asking people, when does Grace Church most feel like family for you?
Well, firstly, I think you do an amazing job of making it feel like family, because it really does. The obvious answer would be when I'm with my life group, because that is they are just amazing. But I think actually it's like after the service, my mum's side of the family is quite big. Unfortunately, my aunt has a house big enough for all of us to be together. But my cousin and I always say that what we love about our family gatherings is that we're never all in the same room. So if you're like, oh, actually, I don't really want to talk about what they're talking about, you can always go and find someone else to talk to. And I love that about Grace Church, that you can be like out in the foyer, and then you think, oh, actually, I think I saw somebody from upstairs, so you can go through into the main theatre bit, or you can be outside, and there's always someone around to chat with. And it doesn't matter if they're part of your specific life group, or if they're just someone that you might have seen in passing, or you've talked to once before. There's always someone to talk to, and there's always someone to be family with. And so I think it's that opportunity to have that community and that fellowship together. That's when it really reminds me of my own family gatherings, and it definitely feels like family at those points. So great.
That's so special, actually, just that you felt that in those moments after church. It sometimes can feel a bit like, are people getting lost in the crowd? That's one of my concerns, and I love that encouragement, actually, to maybe break out from the normal space that you're in and wander around and go and find someone else. And I do like that too, the ability just to connect with different groups and different people on a Sunday is definitely a special time. We often say, don't we, at the end of church, like, do stick around. And sometimes people kind of quip that it's like almost the main bits now, like after the kind of sung worship and preaching and kids work, that's almost the main bit, isn't it? To fellowship and
I think
and pray and encourage.
Just so important to be able to have that time, and whether that's sort of a little bit before the service or whether it's afterwards, it's just as important as those moments during the service, just to have that time together.
Yes. Yeah, cool. I almost want to set a challenge for people to come and like high five you if they've heard this interview in that moment after the service. Okay, so that'll just be if you're listening to this, go and high five Naomi, and just with a kind of knowing look on your face, and you'll know that she's enjoying that family moment. Okay, right, that's been really cool. Good to get to know you a little bit, Naomi, and let's dive into maybe a bit more of the kind of the main stuff that we were going to chat about in terms of knowing Jesus better. And I wonder if you might be able to tell us a time in your life where you have really grown deeper in your knowledge of God, your knowing of God's presence in your life.
Yeah, I was thinking about this one, and I was trying to sort of like whittle it down and make it into something that I could actually sort of summarize. But I've been on a bit of a journey for the last 2-3-ish years. But it kind of all started back in about 2018, because although I trained originally as a sign language interpreter, and for anyone who doesn't know, what happened was I saw an interpreter at Spring Harvest when I was 9 and said to my mum, that's what I'm going to do. And she was a bit like, okay, enjoy that. How's that going to happen? But for some reason, I absolutely knew that was what I was meant to do.
I love that. When you told me that before, I thought that was so special and such an encouragement to people listening, maybe who are children, maybe who have children, that God can speak even in those moments.
But he absolutely can. I've never felt so sure of anything in my life before or since. But because of concerns about most sign language interpreters are self-employed, and so because of concerns about being freelance and having to find work and being single and how was that going to work in terms of like covering bills and things, I was always an in-house interpreter, and I ended up working in a school where we had some wonderful deaf children. And so I thought, do you know what would be a brilliant idea? I'm going to retrain as a teacher. Now, I love kids and I absolutely love kids' work, and I had a ball being in the classroom with them, but I really, really missed signing. So the way I used to kind of keep my hand in was I used to go back and interpret at Spring Harvest every year. I'm a member of Signs of God, and so I used to get put onto these teams. And I remember in 2018, I just moved to a new school. I really wasn't particularly happy, and we came away from Spring Harvest and I was just broken by the thought that it was going to be another year until I got to do that again, really. And I'd been really inspired or kind of challenged by a talk that Rob Parsons gave in the youth venue. I've had to write down what he said because I will forget it, I'll get it a bit wrong. But he said, I've got this poem I want to share with you. And he said to them, there is freedom waiting for you in the breezes of the sky. And you ask, what if I fall? Oh, but my darling, what if you fly? And we drove home and I said to my mum, I was saying this and oh gosh, I really, really want to be an interpreter again. I really want to go back to interpreting, but I might fall. And she just looked at me and said, but you might fly. And various things led to me going, okay, fine, we're going to have a go at this. And by rights and by logic, this should not have worked. I hadn't signed properly for about 7 years. I'd signed maybe once a month at church and occasionally at Spring Harvest. And you know what they say, if you don't use it, you lose it. But I could still like function as an interpreter. I moved to a completely new area where I had no connections, but I found work. And apart from the months of the pandemic where like the first few months of lockdown where everything kind of stopped, actually God has been really faithful, and I've always had enough. I've had enough work, I've had enough to cover everything. And I just feel like, I don't feel like God says I told you so, but I feel like he's sort of looking at me with this kind of wry smile of like, this is what you're meant to do. And because of the fact that you've been faithful and you've stepped out in faith, look what's happened, look at all of this. And I have experienced his faithfulness in a way that I had never, ever experienced before. And I had to rely on him in a way that I'd never had to before, because it was very easy when, salaries coming in at the end of the month. It's like, oh, that's fine. And I'm absolutely not knocking that because it's a brilliant thing, but it's, taking that step of faith. And even when it was like, there's no work, what am I going to do? Almost hearing that sort of small voice of just keep going, just keep going. And so I feel like for me, that's been a massive learning curve in trusting God, believing that he will provide, that he is that provider, and that, that what if you fly idea. And if it goes a bit wrong, I'm there to catch you, because he talks about we hear about his everlasting arms, and he's there underneath us. And so, for me, that's been the moment that I was just like, do you know what? Okay, I'll go with what you think, because actually his plans are always best. And I love what I do, and I'm so lucky to do it.
Yeah, that's so cool. I mean, I love I love hearing that story, but it makes me think back to when we first met. And I think that you were in those difficult months, pandemic, lockdown, etc. And so it can sound now like, oh, it was a breeze, but I know it wasn't. I know there's been some tough moments there, and but I love that kind of testimony of God is faithful. He can be relied upon. He has been speaking since you were 9. He's had a plan that he's been working out. And isn't it so often true that it's in those valley moments, in those difficult moments, that's when we really do grow to know God better?
Absolutely. And you know, I might not have always liked being in those valley moments. In fact, I definitely didn't like being in those valley moments, but I feel like the song Goodness of God, I can actually sing it and know what that really means now, whereas before it was a lovely song, but now I'm like, no, actually, all my life you have been faithful, and you have been faithful in this situation. And I might not have been able to see it at the time, but now looking back, yeah, it was hard work, but God's hand was all over that, because there's no way that I should have flown in the way that I did.
Yeah, great. Well, what a word of encouragement to people who are feeling like they're in those tricky months, or they're kind of like, can I trust God, or what if I fall? Yeah, that's so good. Thanks, Naomi. Thanks for sharing that. We talked a bit about how we can grow to know God in the mundane, in the normal, in the kind of day-to-day. And I wonder, because I'm really inspired by hearing kind of what different people do, their kind of the variety of ways that people connect with Jesus kind of throughout day-to-day life. Are there any like habits, patterns, routines, things that you do on a day-to-day basis, or just you know, from time to time, that help you connect with Jesus and help you grow in your walk with him?
Yeah, definitely. I've got some really good friends who I met interpreting at conferences, and we have little Bible studies on the YouVersion Bible app that we do regularly. So I sort of do them with them, and I do them myself, and sometimes that will be themes and sometimes it'll be about people, but that discussion that we can then have as a result of that, I find that really valuable, because I can learn so much from them. They're such wise women of God, and they are just, they're just inspirational to listen to their stories and their take on things. And because they come from very different church backgrounds, it means that we get different perspectives. So I love that.
So do you connect? So you read the same thing, and there's a bit of chat, or a bit of
there's a bit at the end where you can like comment on it, or you can talk about it, and then, you know, if it's really sort of, oh, we really need to talk about this, we'll phone each other and we'll talk about that. So I love that. But I also love the fact that through finding out about that one with them, I now can do them myself. So anything that I'm thinking, oh, I'd really like to know a bit more about, you know, Joseph's story, for example, I can find a study on that. Or actually, I'm feeling anxious at the moment, there's some studies on anxiety. I mean, I drive a lot for my job, so the music that's in my car is always worship music, which occasionally I do get a bit carried away, and then I'm like, oh dear, I've just missed the road I need to go down. But you know, I'm sure God forgives me for that one. And
I'm sorry, police officer. I'm sorry, officer, I was worshipping.
I was worshipping. I'm sure with a windy smile it'd be fine. That's
great, Naomi, but you need to keep your eyes open and your hands on the steering wheel.
Oh yeah, I have to make sure I don't sign as well, because then that's really bad. But I think, I find that when I'm driving, and particularly when I'm listening to things, I'm not really one for standing on ceremony with things. Pretty much what you see is what you get. So I kind of keep a bit of a constant stream of chatter with God, and I realize that he knows exactly what's going on, but I quite like to just make sure he does, so I tell him anyway. So sometimes it's like, you know, thank you for making that job go well, or thank you for sort of being in that situation where I was like, I'm not quite sure how I'm going to get to my next one in time. Sometimes it's just simple things like, please help me find a parking space, and sometimes it's just sort of general chit chat as I would have with a friend. And I think that's something I've been really trying to cultivate, that idea that it is a relationship, it's not a one-way thing, and in order to do that I need to talk a bit more. So yeah, I just sort of chatter away. And then again, you know, I really value my sort of my Christian friends, so people in life group, and having time with them, maybe as a group, or sort of one-on-one, or small groups of us, and just having those people who check in and say, all right, haven't seen you for a while, just anything I can pray for, and I find that just really helps to kind of keep you focused.
Great.
Really.
Yeah, so I'm hearing like really rich kind of community, real like encouragement and being spurred on through others. I love the way that can work through kind of at a distance as well, you know, through social media, or through apps or whatever. And then also like the individual too. I think we need both, don't we? I think we're designed for
Absolutely.
community and the one anothering. And yeah, I'm really inspired by that chit-chattering throughout the day sort of side. I think I can so easily like segment my life, and like there can be a prayer moment, and then there can be a work moment or whatever. And I love the kind of crossover I'm hearing. I want more of that for sure. I find it too easy to forget about God when I'm busy in my day to day. So yeah, that's a big encouragement to me, actually, just to remember that it is that relationship, it is that two-way dialogue, and God wants to hear about parking spaces and how we're feeling and things.
Yeah, I think he does. I like to think he likes to hear about that.
Yeah, for sure. Cool. I mean, I don't know if this is too challenging to ask, but if you were going to give some advice to someone listening in today, who really wants to love Jesus more, who's like, yeah, I want to grow in knowing God better, what would it be? Is there like something that you've heard or that's helped you that you could pass on to the rest of us?
I was having a think about this because when you sort of sent the questions through, I saw this and I just thought, I love this, absolutely love this. So I would say it takes a village. And you might have heard it takes a village to raise a child. I used to say it takes a village to put on a school production. I think it takes a village to make sort of a walk with Jesus something that is sustainable, something that we can really benefit from. I'm not knocking doing it on your own, and I'm certainly not saying that you can't, but I think you need your people, and you need the people around you who are going to encourage you, who are going to check in. And whilst yes, there are many holy moments in like the corporate worship times, like you said, God is found in the mundane, in the everyday, in the cups of tea and the tears and the joy and sharing that life together. And I was thinking about it the other day, and here we go, film reference. I don't know if you've seen, Sam might have done, Raising Helen, where it's young aunt, she's sort of living the high life, and suddenly she gets custody of her sister's 3 children because her sister and her brother-in-law have been killed in an accident. And she's one of 3, and so the other sister, who's really, really good homemaker, is very frustrated that she hasn't been given custody of these children. And it sort of goes through the film, and Helen, who's got the kids, is having lots of problems, but they've been given these 2 letters from the solicitor who gives them these sisters' letters. And at the end, they swap these letters and they find out why it is that Helen got the kids and the other one didn't. And the one who died writes this thing saying, if you can't be there to raise your children, you will choose the person who is most like you, who can give you glimpses of the parent that they lost. Wow. And I was thinking that this is a bit like God. Not that we've lost him, far from it, but he can't be here in the person of Jesus now. Yeah. So he puts people in our lives who are most like Jesus, who can point us towards him, but also show us glimpses of his character. So it's finding those people who will show you what Jesus is like to help you get to know him better. And they're there to question you, you can question them, to challenge and to direct, but also just to show you, this is the love of Jesus.
Love that. What an amazing idea that actually in each other we see glimpses of who Jesus is. That each other paints that picture of God, and we play that role in others too.
Yeah, I think it's
not
massive
just like
challenge, but a huge privilege as well. And so that would be my thing. It takes a village, and find your people. It takes a village,
find your people. I love the plug for life group that's come through this this chat, Naomi. I mean, I don't think I'd even be a Christian if it wasn't for friends who have journeyed with me. I mean, God's faithful and all of that, and that's maybe a silly sentence to say, but I don't know where I'd be. I'd be utterly lost. This week was with some friends who they've known me at my worst. One of them prayed with me as I kind of came back to faith, having just wandered away from everything. I sometimes tell the story being 18 and I just didn't know anything anymore. And this guy, he prayed with me as I kind of recommitted my life to Jesus, and I was 18, and this week I was with him. That's 22 years later.
Amazing.
And and those guys like have been massive for me, but like on loads of levels, you need your people, as you say, and life group. If anyone listening here, he was on the fence about life groups. Listen to Naomi and the last couple of years and how much that group's helped her, and all those groups, the Spring Harvest group as well. Great advice. It takes a village, and find your people. Wow, thank you. That's really good. Do you have energy for a couple more quick fire questions?
Oh, go for it.
Do we go for it? We didn't do these the last couple of interviews because we kind of ran out of time, but there's some quite deep ones. So here's one. What do you see in other Christ followers that saddens you the most?
Well, I think for me, it's got a lot worse since the advent of social media. I don't like it when there are people who profess faith or use like Reverend so-and-so as their Twitter handle, and then what they write does not match that. I a bit like this idea that we are the glimpses, we might be the only glimpse of Jesus that someone else sees, so we have to be something positive. And I think quite a lot of times people use faith to justify poor choices, and they put things out there into sort of the social media world, not realizing that might be the only interaction with a Christian message that someone has. For example, last week when we were in the middle of unprecedented heat, some person decided, I think they were an Anglican vicar, they decided to post on Twitter that they were very disappointed to see members of the clergy celebrating communion wearing flip-flops. They were wearing all their robes, but they were wearing flip-flops. Now, I don't think that's biblical, as in to criticize that. I think Jesus probably wore sandals. He lived when they're quite hot. I also think God would rather that people sort of went to communion and were okay than passed out from the heat. And I think sometimes we've created all these sort of social constructs that become religion, and that's not faith, and that's not loving people in the way that Jesus intended. And I find that really, really difficult to deal with. I don't think Jesus would mind if he rocked up at a church and the preacher was in a suit or a pair of shorts. I think he'd be quite happy either way. And I think for people maybe who are looking for faith or seeking somewhere to go to church, if they turned up and they were in their jeans or their shorts and the person who was leading from the front was also dressed in a similar way, that might actually make me feel more comfortable. So I think, it's the idea that James obviously says that faith without actions is dead. And I think sometimes the actions that you can also maybe turn that to be faith with actions that don't match the faith doesn't really help either. So that is what saddens me most.
I agree. And the big point is like, actually, what are you portraying of who Jesus is? And that that is an opportunity lost there, isn't it, for sure?
Absolutely.
Well said, and a good encouragement for all of us to make sure the walk matches the talk, and a particular challenge. I'm not on social media much, but a particular challenge for that world that we're now all in, of how we represent Jesus and our true selves online. That's a whole nother interview at another time.
That is a completely different topic.
Good. Couple more and then we'll finish. Best book of the Bible, and then worship song you worship most passionately to. Maybe it's the one you mentioned earlier. But I
love these ones. So best book of the Bible, I like characters. So I like so I've got a lot of time for Esther, her, the such a time as this verse, the idea that she was placed somewhere and in a nasty situation, but actually it was used for good. Same with Joseph, who obviously got put into an awful situation. We've had to pick one. I think it's Ruth. I mean, I like strong female leads. There's probably a theme there, but I love the fact that Ruth is just this story of redemption. If you look at Naomi's story, and that idea that that faithfulness is rewarded, and it might not be rewarded in the way that you think it will be, and it might involve sacrifice and hard work, but actually at the end, you know, God has a plan and he gets you to that place, and it is that, you know, well done, good and faithful servant. And it's not just because, you know, Naomi and Ruth are my names, but I think her story is just completely inspiring, and it's the one that I come back to again and again in Bible studies. And it's the it's the story that I just think, you know what, you can see God all the way through this. And even when Naomi's standing there and saying, you know, don't call me that because it means pleasant, call me Mara because I feel bitter, you can see those glimmers of, well, she hasn't given up completely, because then you know, Ruth is there and Boaz comes in, and so I love it. It's amazing.
Yeah, we did a mini series, I think September 2019. I think you can get it through our website actually. We just did each of the 4 chapters of Ruth, September 2019, and I still remember some of what was shared. Sheila spoke, Sam spoke, Rachel spoke, and it's such a great book. It's such a great book, and I love how God speaks through stories. So yeah, good one. Worship song, just finish on that.
I've got 2, and I wouldn't say they're necessarily the ones I worship most passionately to, but they're the ones that I come back to time and time again. So the first one is There Is a Redeemer. I have said for years this is going to be the song I have at my funeral. My dad hates it when I say that, but it's because of that 3rd verse, the when I stand in glory I will see his face. There's no ambiguity there. This is what is going to happen. And when I was thinking about this, because I'm one of these people who has known about God for all my life. I've always known there's something there. I feel like it's that you know, when we finally see Jesus, we've spent all our lives going, oh, was that God talking? Or is that what, are we seeing Jesus there? When we finally stand there and we see him face to face, we're going to have that moment of course, that's who you are. And there's no question about it. So yeah, I love that one, and that one all-time favorite. And the other one
I think you could start that on a Sunday. You sang There Is, everyone just join in.
I know, I really, sometimes I'm like, I really want to
challenge.
Just stay with that one. Maybe I'll get Maxine to do it, she can sing better than I can. Okay. And then the other one is relatively sort of newer one to me, Sovereign Over Us.
I don't know it.
Do you not know that one? Oh no, my goodness, oh, it's amazing. I love songs that sort of declare God's goodness and talk about how fortunate we've been and how much grace he's given us. But I also really love the songs that say, yeah, life's tough, life's hard. Yes. And that's what this one does. And it talks about, you know, strength within weakness, and, you know, that he's there and he lifts you and he's compassionate. And the chorus is it takes sort of inspiration from those lovely words in Jeremiah. It's your plans are still to prosper, you've not forgotten us, you're with us in the fire and flood, faithful forever, perfect in love, you're sovereign over us. And it also talks about being faithful in the valley. And it's just one of those ones where it's like, yeah, actually, even when I was really struggling to listen to things like Goodness of God or Living Hope, because I didn't feel particularly hope-filled and I didn't feel like there was much goodness, that one I could still worship to, because I could tell myself that, you know, with us through whatever, he is there. And so that's probably, I really recommend you listen to it. I think it's amazing. And
I would do that.
It's great.
Yeah. Cool. I would definitely do that. Thank you. And I love a worship song that has the realness of life.
Yeah.
You know, blessed be your name on the road marred with suffering. You know, that connects with real
that one
life,
was up there as well. I had to pick. I could have a list, but blessed be your name as well.
But there's something special. I mean, I think we're learning this a bit with the Psalm series and laments and stuff. There's something untapped possibly in our worship of just bringing the pain as well. Yeah. And but still declaring like the faithfulness of God and the goodness of God in the midst of it, and being reminded of that truth. So I will check that out. Sovereign Over Us, by who? Do you know who?
I've got a version of a Spring Harvest sort of live worship album by someone called Pete James, but I think it might be Michael W. Smith who wrote it.
Okay, I'm sure a bit of YouTube searching or something on Spotify will help us that. And I think we're going to be singing There Is a Redeemer kind of, from for the rest of the day. We haven't mentioned that. Naomi, it's been such a pleasure to have you involved in these interviews. You might fall, but you might fly. That's going to really stay with me. Thank you for that great provocation and encouragement about God's faithfulness in the midst of the valleys and the challenging moments, and what a testimony your life continues to be. God is faithful and he does provide. I hope people will come and high five you after the service. Just a reminder of that little challenge. And I love the encouragement. It takes a village. It takes a village for each one of us. Find your people. There's such wisdom there. Thank you, Naomi. I mean, it's been great just for people to get to know you a little bit better. Hopefully someone will buy you a bacon sandwich with proper white bread as well. And and you said you like baking. Well, bring it on. We like to hear I don't eat cake, you might not know that, but I know a lot of people in church will enjoy some of your baking. Did you come to Cake Fest the other week?
It was my mum's birthday, so I couldn't, but I have been icing for joy.
Have you? Yes.
In fact, I did find icing in my hair because it had got so far, so joyful.
Oh yeah, I couldn't resist but bringing that joke in on Sunday.
It was
Icing
brilliant.
for joy at the work of your hands. Very good. Yeah. All right, Naomi, thank you, and everyone for listening in. Really appreciate you being part of another one of these interviews. We've got more planned over the summer. We're going to drop these every few weeks or so, just as and when. So watch this space. Check out the other ones if you haven't heard, and check out the Grace Church website. More information about who we are, and hopefully see you soon. Cheers.
Bye.